Welcome, my tarot friends, to our episode 2 on the Herbcrafter tarot in the series called Under the Magnifying Glass. Today we are looking at 2s in the whole deck. So we're going to be looking at number 2s in minor arcana, and then we're going to look at the 2s that are represented in the major arcana like really quickly, and also at our knights, or in this case Adelitas. So let's just dive in. So if we look at 2s and what they represent in tarot, so 2s stand for choices and relationships between two things, two ideas, two people. The energy that we get in the 2s is push-pull type of energy, and it builds up for energy that has the potential to birth the number 3. Number 2s are all about reciprocity. So reciprocity means giving and taking, and that balance between the two. And that leads to balancing of dualities within ourselves, and also within different projects, different relationships, and anything else in our world. In number 2, we explore the dualities between masculine and feminine energies, between light and dark side of us or in other things, between different ideals and goals, fears and strengths, and so on. So we look at different dualities in life. In number 2, one integrates and unifies opposing energies. 2s represent the balancing and exchanging energy, moving back and forth between your polarities, or between polarities in the world. Is that, like I said before, that push-pull type of feeling. Number 2s are also about choices, changes, and creative opportunities. In our deck, if you look at our 4 cards we have here, so 2 of air, 2 of fire, 2 of water, and 2 of earth. In the guidebook, it talks about that these are the plants that are beneficial to pollinating animals, so that's insects and sometimes also birds, but also plants that provide food and shelter to other type of animals as well. And then, because we talk about reciprocity, right? So the animals, in return to what the plants give to them, spread pollen or fruits and seeds, and that way ensuring that plants survive. So we talked about how it's all about giving and receiving in the 2s, and this shows in these 4 cards very beautifully. The plants that we see in number 2s are the plants that are near the beginning of our, or Herbcrafter's, botanical journey. The Herbcrafter meets her first challenge in the 2s, so she's still a beginner at this point. Through the number 2, she learns how her choices affect the whole ecosystem. So these cards spark the beginning of an action that then leads to reciprocity, so leads to that giving and taking, giving and receiving. The herbs of the 2s challenge us to create balance in our life. So like I did in our first episode, where I looked separately at each card and I talked about how I journeyed into each card and how I used my senses, how I used my intuition and knowledge of tarot, colors, numerology and everything, and connected everything together, and then wrote down what came through for me, and then I compared that to what is written in the guidebook. The same thing I'm gonna do now for the 2s. So let's start with our 2 of air. Let's move this away for now. So my observations in this card were, I noticed first thing that stood out for me was the blue sky at the background and fuzzy white clouds flowing through there, and that gave me a feeling that everything is possible. The next thing that stood out for me were the purple flowers, the purple blossoms. To me, that sparked that connection between purple and the crown chakra, and that led in my mind to the theme of making choices that come from a higher level of awareness. And as you can see, these flowers also reaching really high. Crown chakra is associated with spirituality, and so with going within and meditation. So, we know that in traditional 2 of air or 2 of swords, there is a woman who is blindfolded and she has to go within to decide which way to go or what she wants to do next, etc. So I find it very interesting, and how beautifully this message comes through just by these flowers. We also notice that there are butterflies flying around, which to me speaks of transformation and change, which 2s are all about. So I noticed that these plants are growing high, like I mentioned before, and that talks to me about the suit of air So the suit of mind, because they're going up, you know, the head is at the toppest part of our body. So to me, that looks like a head on top of the body, right? So that talks to me about the mind, the ego, the thoughts. The blossoms are also facing up. Another connection to spirituality for me, looking up to your higher self for the answers. On the picture, we see a lot of air and a lot of greenery. And I feel like there's a really nice balance between these two. And that tells me that the message of this card is a balance between the mind and the heart, which represents, you know, heart chakra is green or associated with green. And therefore, you know, the balance between the air, the mind, and the green, which is the heart. It could also represent the body, so, you know, physical things and intellectual things. What it says in the guidebook, so as you remember, you have 3 points in the guidebooks, and then it talks about the picture, and then at the end you have the herb crafting with the plants. So the first 3 points are releasing long-held beliefs, to be receptive of guidance, and open to unlikely partnerships, which is very interesting. And I feel you need to journey into the picture to understand those messages, really. So I'm going to paraphrase what it says in the book, but the messages that are in the book are that chicory is often classified as a weed, but it is indeed a beneficial medicine plant that attracts important insects into the whole garden. So the old ideas can be blinders to new vision of what is real. Be receptive to new guidance, gather all the information, then go within, and only after then take decision. So is that pause, going within and then making the decision, like we know in Two of Swords is quite an obvious message. Chicory's root, so the plant's root, brings nourishment to the surface. A deep dive will quiet self-doubt. So chicory's root is used as medicine, so it represents to me going deep down within us, under the surface, which is the soil. Another message in the guidebook is that acknowledge what you don't want to accept and then be willing to listen. So it's like these plants are looking up. It's like they're waiting for something to come to them. So they're listening to the advice from the divine. Be open. Don't hide behind a closed, fearful heart. Just like chicory flowers are opened wide with the striking petal colors. So it is quite obvious what is meant here, isn't it? And then for crafting, I'm just gonna choose the one that I really resonated with, and that is to be bold and clear. Dress like a chicory flower. Put blue streaks in your hair. Be your true, authentic self. And I feel if you're true, authentic self, then decision making is also very easy because you are coming from yourself, from the deep within you. You don't... Sometimes the outside world can be helpful, you know, the advice and stuff, but sometimes it can be distracting. So when you know who you are and you're going deep within, it is much easier than to make a decision for yourself. And then I also made a side note here that I suppose Two of Air is about looking deep down and quieting the outside world, which are to do with stigmas, outdated beliefs, unsolicited advice, etc., and then deciding what is true to you and showing and bringing that onto the surface in the real world. Okay, let's move on to our next card, and that is Two of Fire, so Two of Wands. What I wrote down about this card is, so my observations were, the Herbcrafter is still in a safe space under a roof. So we can see that there's like a sunshine outside, but she's still here under the roof. I assume there is a roof because it's like shadow here, or shade, sorry. So the sun is shining on the plants in the garden and her sun hat is off. So that means she is in a shade, right? In a non-hot, more cool place that I suppose is really hot out there. She has prepared the plants in the pots, and it looks like she has the intention to plant them in the garden, but she must first make the decision to go from a comfy shade into the hot sun, and to do so she needs courage. The card feels fiery because of the red colors, so that talks to me of the suit of the fire. And also we see the art on the stone table, the sun here, and the sunflowers here, which talks about the sun energy, which is again fire. Sun and the sunflower also speak to me about being your bold self and expressing who you truly are in this world. Similarly, the bee balm petals a really bold color, so that to me speaks about being bold and expressing yourself, and don't shy away from lightening up the space you walk into. The Herbcrafter will plant the bee balm into the garden, and so give something to the bees, which are pollinators. And when she does that, the bees also give things back to the plant because they're going to pollinate. The plants have grown from the seeds that we can see on this table, and that speaks to me about, having the patience, because it takes time for them to grow. It doesn't just happen in one day. And also about nurturing them. You have to water them. You need to make sure that they have their plant food in them, etc. And also about taking time to do all these things. And then what Herbcrafter is going to receive from planting the bee balm plant in the garden is obviously beauty, love in her heart, because doing something nice, giving from our hearts, fills up our heart with love and warm feelings. I'm sure you've all been in the situation where you generally give something to someone and you see them happy, and it just makes you happy as well. It creates that fluffy feeling in your heart. And also she might even receive honey if she has a beehive. Those bees are going to go onto the plants and bring the nectar back into the beehive and create honey, so she might even get the honey from this whole thing. And I also get from this card that planting and gardening is a craft that is very creative. You need to be creative in order to do that. You need to have the imagination. You need to imagine the end product when you start to plant, and where you're going to plant them and how it's going to look like, etc. And now if we look in the guidebook, the first 3 points are: harness the power of desire, embrace creativity with confidence, courageously step towards the heat. And I mentioned that before, that you need to be courageous to go out in the heat. What else? It says that bee balm attracts pollinators and hummingbirds into the garden because it is a very bright and bold plant. And that speaks about empowered, bright spirit that inspires others. So when you put the bee balm out there, it attracts other beings to come there as well. By planting bee balm, it creates a diverse ecosystem and activity in the garden because it attracts more pollinators. And when making a decision, we should be creative, original, but also open to new ideas, because with other things coming in, we always get new ideas, new perspectives. The remedies made from bee balm heal with a kick, because bee balm is a little bit spicy. So that talks about walking with flames of passion under your feet. It also advises to not let fear or excitement, which is very interesting, both sides, which is again polarity, right? On one side you have fear, on the other side you have excitement, and don't let them charge your actions. So do what you must do confidently and courageously. Like the striking bee balm petals and flowers, we also attract what we desire when we are our true, confident self. And that is something that I got from this painting or picture before as well, when I was talking about my nodes. And then if you look at the crafting with bee balm, the one that stood out for me is to make a spicy bee balm infused honey that helps with colds and flus. You can also take it before any creative work session to fuel your passion. How cool is that? It's a very witchy and pagan-y thing to do. Okay, so this was 2 of fire. Now let's move on to 2 of water. So again, when I looked at this picture, what stood out for me were many things. Just looking at this painting or this scene makes me feel free because of the blue sky and joyful hummingbirds, and also these clouds are very light and playful at the back. White flowers to me speak of true, pure intentions and energy, but also we see that there's a pink inside of each flower. And to me, pink speaks of pure love, because our heart chakra is actually not just green. So the bottom of the chakra is green and the top of the chakra is pink. And that to me speaks of pure love. And we can see that the birds are drinking the nectar, and in return they're pollinating. So it's about harmony between the plants and the birds, about symbiotic relationship. Then here in the bottom, we see this goddess, Aphrodite, who is the goddess of love. And she is, as you can see, she's bare-chested, she's naked. And to me, that talks about opening your heart space, opening your heart chakra, being your true self, because she is naked, but also at the same time being vulnerable with yourself or the other person. And then we have water on the picture, which then is really easy for us to recognize that this is a water suit, and because it's about harmony and harmonic relationship between the birds and the plants, is obviously a two of water. These green leaves here feel very lush, and they talk to me again about the heart chakra space and connection also to Mother Earth. The whole scene is very dreamlike to me. It has that feel to it, and romantic type of feeling to it. It's very gentle, the strokes and everything on it is very gentle and loving. If you compare it to this one, the strokes and the way this is painted is way more defined, I'm gonna say, than here. It feels more soft compared to this one, for example. If we look here, we see that some flower buds aren't open yet. That speaks to me about the potential of growth within yourself or within the other party, whatever that is. And then if we look at the guidebook, we have the 3 points. Let love in, soften dry and brittle wounds. Softening, like I said before, this painting has a very soft feel to it. Welcome genuine connection. This is a very pure, genuine connection between the hummingbirds and the plant. The guidebook, it talks about how Aphrodite here being naked and vulnerable and sovereign, that basically if you're like that, it brings self-renewing relationships to us. So when you're yourself naked and open-hearted, and that's very similar to what I got from this picture just by observation as well. It talks about allowing ourselves to be drawn in by what we love, like the hummingbirds, for example, love the petals of the plant. Hummingbirds are very light and delightful beings, and so it speaks about lightness of being that fosters an open heart. Mallow, the plant, grows really tall again, just like in the two of air. It grows really tall in marshlands, which are watery lands, which again talks about water suits to us. And so it says that if you reach out like if the plant, like the plant feels like it's reaching out with a gentle, which is again soft petals, soft colors, soft strokes, but a steady hand, because it's tall and steady, harmonious union follows. So harmonious union here is relationship between plants and the birds. This plant's root is used for tea, and that tea cools the pain of dry, brittle wounds. And that talks about taking the time to soften our sharp edges and approach partnerships with kindness, gentleness, and emotional stability. Talking about emotional stability, these plants look very stable, and also the statue is very stable. And all that then leads to experience mutuality. And then crafting with the plant, we have to make a cold infused mallow tea made of mallow roots to soothe a sore throat and ease the rage of bitter emotions. And it's very interesting because the throat chakra is related to expressing what we really feel, and I find that connection very interesting here with the suit of water, and of course two of water, which is all about emotions. So I notice in my life, whenever I am, let's say, in an argument with someone, or I don't agree with the other person says, when I don't express my true self, what I really think, like being my true authentic self, like she is, when I'm not vulnerable, I get this throat ache. It feels like a ball in my throat, like I'm holding back. And it's interesting how this is all connected together. It's so interesting. Let's move to our next card, which is Two of Earth. I'm not going to lie, when I first saw this card, I did not think of the Earth suit. But when you really journey into it, you realize that, yeah, it is definitely an Earth suit. I firstly thought of the air because it feels very light and airy, right? But you'll see why it does make sense that this is 2 of earth. So we have witch hazel here. We see snow and ice here. And that to me speak of icy and slippery surfaces. And we know that on these slippery surfaces, it is very hard to balance, right? And we know that 2 is all about balancing, and especially 2 of earth. The next thing I noticed were these striking yellow blossoms on the witch hazel. And that to me brings color to this landscape. It feels like a gift in winter times. These blossoms in winter times feel like 2 polarities, right? We have the blossoms which usually blossom in, in spring, and then here we have winter, so it's like 2 polarities, 2 opposites. Also, the blossoms remind me of sun and fire, which is something that we're lacking. That is winter. There's less of sun in winter. And then again we have the birds which are nesting in here, and they are in symbiotic relationship with witch hazel. The use of witch hazel that I am familiar with is to cleanse the skin, getting rid of what is not needed in your life, if we relate it to life, and to restore the balance, the pH of the skin. So that would be restoring the balance in your life. The whole landscape feels very cold, but the blossoms bring warmth and are inviting. They're inviting us. If you know these birds, I think it's blue tits. They're very quick and swift. They're quick moving and change position all the time where they are, where they sit, where they stand. But also at the same time, they appear very joyful and joyous. And to me, that speaks of embracing the change with joy and gratefulness. And then we notice that there are ribbons on this plant as well, and they feel to me like offerings or a part of a ritual or celebration even. The scene actually feels quite busy. We have the striking blossoms, the moving birds, the colorful ribbons dancing in the wind. So a lot is going on in your life, but in a positive way, because these are all joyful, nice things that are going on. So the opposite was what was expected in this winter times. So again, we had this opposition and busyness. We know that with 2 of coins, there's a lot that is coming into our life and we need to juggle that around. So that shows us really well. And then if we look in the guidebook, the first 3 points are full hands, rich life, balance on the edges of death and lightness. Find joy, like the birds, joy in each moment. And I love this sentence in the guidebook. It says, a busy life is an abundant life. And I feel we should all remember that when a lot is going on in our lives, that actually a lot is going on means that we have a lot of things going on. It's way better than nothing going on. It is actually abundance. It is, busyness is a good thing. We should be grateful for it, because sometimes we're like overwhelmed, but we should stop and count our blessings instead. Then it talks about how witch hazel has many functions. It's food, it's refuge for birds. It has flexible branches that are made for baskets. And once again, remember in the introduction I was talking about how in the earth suit we always have plants that are used to weave, like weaving arts, to create baskets and stuff. So that then is very obvious that it is an earth suit. And also when he talked about the the abundance and things that come into and busyness. So witch hazel has flexible branches for baskets, and they also use bark for medicine. So many skills are called to the task at once. Witch hazel flowers in late winter and so blends the edges of winter and spring. And again, I said this in my observations as well, these are the opposites, right? It blends, it brings together the opposites. How amazing is that? Like, the message comes through so beautifully, it's incredible. So, the polarities could be grief, joy, depth, lightness. And that also speaks about the ability to hold the tension of opposing interest or opposing things. And that is what brings prosperity into our life, when we are able to hold that tension of the opposing energies or opposing things, when we find how to bring those 2 things together, and then that is what brings prosperity into our lives. It says then, if you feel unstable, the yellow flowers promise that relief is not far off. Like I was talking about before, how yellow, it feels like abundance, it feels like something optimistic, something good coming your way. And then it speaks about when change, which to me the birds speak of change, And also the change is coming because this is blooming, so the winter is going to slowly transform into the spring. So when the change occurs, find solid ground in the present moment. And if you observe these birds, they are in a present moment. And just meditating on these ribbons could bring us into the present moment. Just observing how they're moving in the air could bring us there. Witch hazel brings brightness to a winter landscape. And I said this as well. So it adds levity to your tasks and it will lighten your load. Don't take things too seriously. Again, the birds feel very joyous. So don't take things too seriously, right? Which is a really good message for Two of Earth as well. And then one point from crafting section. I like this one a lot. So hang bird houses from winter trees and pause to sing with the birds. Find their joy whilst you work. So when you're working, put the houses for birds out there and just observe them, sing with them. That's going to bring you into the moment, and it's going to, singing releases endorphins and it's going to make you feel better. And, feeling better, you're going to attract that abundance into your life. So what a wonderful way to end this Two of Earth. The major arcana cards that relate to number 2 are the High Priestess, Justice, and Awakening, or in many decks, this is called Judgment. And I don't want to go too deep into these because we will go deeper into these when I deep dive into major arcana. But we can just look at the High Priestess and if we look at the High Priestess, the first thing that I notice personally is the connection with Two of Air. Do you see the colors? They're basically the same colors or very, very similar. And Two of Air speaks about going within, right? The High Priestess is about going within, is about that meditation, that connection to the inner self or higher self or whatever you want to call it. And we have a dream pillow here being made, and we see the stars and the moon here, which the moon talks about our intuition and going within. We have the veil. We even have the polarities, right? We have the white and the dark black or dark blue, and these actually I googled these two crystals. This one is yellowish white color and it's called copal, and they are used by indigenous peoples of Mexico and Central America as an incense during ceremonies. So ceremonies is all about that spiritual connection, right? So they're very spiritual resins that later harden into amber as well. And please, this is what I found, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And then these ones are storax resins, and they burn these to relax and calm down and enhance the meditative state. It also melts away blockages and drives away evil spirits. It reveals energies that are invisible on the physical dimension. How great is that? Because the High Priestess is all about finding that secret knowledge through going deep within, the Akashic records. And yeah, it's just incredible. It's just so incredible. And we also have the secret knowledge here. And let's move on, because I don't want to waste too much time on the major arcana cards, because we will come back to them. The next card we have Justice, which is card number 11. 1 + 1 is 2, so it relates to 2s again. And 2s are all about making the choice, right? About polarities. And here we have cannabis plant. And cannabis plant until 1900s was used for paper. I think 75% of the paper was made from cannabis or from hemp. And then they were targeting certain groups of people, and they made cannabis illegal. And they created this perception of cannabis as a dangerous drug. And people lost valued remedy for pain and mental illness, as well as sustainable source of clothing and paper. And it still impacts different groups of people to this day, what they did with this criminalization of it. And so it speaks about justice here, and discernment, and the polarities, as well as, from different perspectives of this being criminalized on one side, and the other side of this being a very useful medicinal plant. It is also very contradictory in this case, because we have this document here is actually a declaration of independence that is written on the cannabis paper. Justice generally talks about looking at both sides of the story and then making a decision or creating an opinion that is fair, that is inclusive of both sides of the story. So I find this very, very interesting. And then the last major arcana card that we have here is Awakening or Judgment card, and it's a plant Tulsi, which is a holy basil. Something that I love about using the word awakening here is when you combine number 2 with number 10, so 2 times 10 is awakening, and 2 is being able to bring the polarities together, and 10 is about that mastery of a suit, right? So you're so masterful, you're so full of knowledge from that suit that you are ready to move to the next journey. And so 2 times 10 brings you to awakening. I love that so much. We see also the connection to spirituality here with the beads that are made from Tulsi plant. And we also have the oil lamp, which is symbolic of the Holy Spirit. This is all I'm gonna say about number 20 right now, because like I said before, I will dive into these deeper in other episodes. So let's just bring our knights in the picture. In this tarot they're called Adelitas, and we have Adelita of air, Adelita of fire, Adelita of water, and like that, and Adelita of earth. Straight away I see the connection between the pictures. It's very obvious to me. So if you look at this too, we have those deep blue type of colors in it, and oregano and chicory have kind of similar structure and feel to the leaves. As we know, Adelitas or knights are all about action, right? Moving, and 2s are about polarities and moving between those two polarities, which I find very interesting, and there is a big connection between these. And then if you look at 2 of fire and Adelita of fire, we have lots of these dark colors here and red that stands out, which is also really cool. And also look at this, it's like this oil and onion here, like the sun shines on them. So we have this sun again in the card, like we have the sun here and here. And then if you look at the Adelita of water, obviously we have water in the picture, but again those beautiful gentle blues, and it feels very gentle. Even the way she's pouring this tea in her cup is very gentle, but also very fresh at the same time. Both pictures or paintings look very fresh. And then if you look at 2 of earth, what stands out for me again is the green. We have the green ribbons here and the blue ribbons, and we have the blue sky here, and the action again, like she is weaving Bridget's cross or crosses. And here we have a plant that is used for weaving as well. So we have that in it, and it feels very meditative as well, creating these crosses. Like before here it was talking about centering and being in the moment and find joy in what you're doing, and here as well I'm sure she's joyful doing this, creating this. And also here we have this striking yellow and kind of orangey type of color in the blossoms as well, and we have some orange ribbons. And here we have the desert, which is also obviously very orange, and we have brown here and we have brown here. So there are connections between those cards, and it is so beautiful, isn't it? So yes, these were the 2s. Please write in the comments below if you've noticed something that I missed out on. I'm very curious to hear about your opinions or your observations, and if there's any other meanings that you see in the cards as well. I would be so happy to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for staying with me throughout this whole episode, and I appreciate you and the time it took to watch this. I hope I see you in the next episode, where we will talk about 3s and the cards that correspond to this number. Until then, have a lovely time. Bye bye.